Right. Recording is on.
Awesome. So this is the SIG Network meeting of Thursday, September 7th, 2017. First thing, or primarily on our agenda today, is 1.8 related stuff, so code freeze at the beginning of the month. So the first topic is a bunch of PM stuff, primarily about release notes. So I'm not sure who added this topic, but I think...
Yeah, I added that block based on the 1.8 burn down meeting that was held earlier this week. There's also another burn down meeting tomorrow, I believe, where they just, essentially daily release engineering stuff to try to make 1.8 happen. But it looks like Chris Luciano actually has the most up-to-date status on that. So I'll let him speak on that in just a second. The other point down there, the stable release proposal, it turns out that that is actually shelved for the moment while the some other committee gets started in the Kubernetes upstream stuff. So we don't need to talk about that at this time. So over to Chris.
Yeah, the linked Google Sheet stuck. I'm not sure if that was only for bugs or something, or for feature blocking things.
Yeah, I think that was where that one came from. I grabbed that out of the burn down meeting agenda notes. So,
okay.
But like I said there, we have nothing on that list anyway, so I don't think we need to care about it at this point.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was for features or not, but I replicated over the features that we have in there, and then someone could just remove them if you're not supposed to have features in there and they're just bugs.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is all the features should go into the place that we've put them so far, which is the release notes draft markdown.
We are missing one in there for, I think this was on the GKE side. Is it the network tiers? Because we had 4 features, I think. 2 with network policy, 1 for IPVS, and then there's one final one that I didn't see in the release notes, but it is an open feature that we have listed. I think it mainly was a GKE specific feature.
Do we need to include like GKE specific feature on this like Kubernetes release node?
Yeah, it's a good question. I wasn't aware of that feature until just the other day when the email got sent around. So it wasn't something I had been tracking.
I can follow up on it.
Cool. So other than that, do our release notes have, all of the 3 other features in at the moment? It looks like it. So although they do look pretty sparse, wondering if there's anything else we want to say about those. Perhaps that's enough.
You mean like expand on what that actually means?
Yeah. I mean, and maybe, I think given that they're alpha and beta features, perhaps a shorter release note is enough.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the review of the release notes I put in there. Just take a look. I don't know if I was that explicit, like, is this enough? It's kind of back and forth. Some are pretty specific, especially if they're breaking features, and yet others are just, here's what I put in the release notes in the PR.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my thought was around the egress policy. It's not necessarily a breaking feature, but it is a kind of interesting new way that the egress policy impacts what people might see. So even just a link to to more information on that might be useful.
Yeah, I will update I still have to update the docs for these new things, and I can add a bit more, including a link to the docs to the release notes when I do that.
Cool, that sounds good. So there are a few other 1.8 things that need attention, and I see there's some more going in there right now. So what's that issue that just got added? 50604. Oh, right.
50604 is the one about updating the storage for network policy, which I forget if that's the original issue or the PR to fix the issue, but you can find them linked together, and reading through the comments in the PR, as I mentioned on the mailing list, like there seems to be a lot of confusion over exactly what needs to be done and what effects which changes will have. So
yeah, I think we said we would hold off on this for 1.8.
Yep.
Okay. The reason I added it to the list was that it showed up in one of the burn down docs as one of the higher priority networking issues.
I believe it is still, as of right this second, tagged as being milestone 1.8, but yeah, we need to be adjusting that.
So I think we should just change that milestone.
I can change that right now if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, 1.9 then? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. It is now 1.9.
Awesome. So aside from that, there are a whole bunch of other issues assigned to or labeled as SIG Network that are in the 1.8 milestone. So I was thinking it'd be good if we could go through those and make sure we're in sync on which ones actually belong in the milestone, which ones should be kicked out, and then make sure that the ones in the milestone are being pushed forward. So how about I share my screen and we can walk through those, and people who know what's going on with each one can speak up.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yep. Can you make it a bit bigger though? Just like jack up your browser font size or something.
Yeah. Whoop.
That's good.
It might be a little big. Okay. That looks good.
Yeah, it does.
Cool. So the first two on here are end-to-end tests for new features that have gone in.
Yep, those are mine. I'm trying to get the end-to-end tests passing locally just on their own, but I'm having a hell of a time doing that because I think there's some just general end-to-end bugs, perhaps, which are preventing this. But I'm working on them now.
Okay. So we're still planning on getting those in for 1.8.
Yes. What's the official cutoff day? Do we have a tentative release day? Does anybody know?
I think the last I checked, it was September 27th.
Okay, yeah, for sure I'll have them done by then.
Cool. So the next one is DNS PTR is broken, sort of broken for pods. Looks like Tim raised this. Is anybody else up to speed on what the deal with this one is?
I think Bowie mentioned that he wants to fix this. He wanted to fix this post freeze, so it's still on there. I'm not sure if he's on the call.
Yeah, it does look like that. So should I assign Bowie to this? And we'll keep it in the milestone for now. Okay. DNS should provide DNS. It's a test failure. Slow. So this one, it looks like it's a critical bug. It's a failing test. There's nobody currently assigned. But there's some discussion on it.
I think there's people subtly assigned to attached PRs and/or links here.
Yeah. Do you see who that might be?
There was a link to a comment, I think.
Right.
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if this has to do with those upgrade, downgrade kuproxy tests or not.
I think that's a separate issue from the kuproxy one. This one, it seems like is the GKE upgrade framework is broken and someone is fixing that.
Yeah. So I think that was just speculation that the original issue here might be caused by that framework. Does anybody have a handle on whether or not this is still regularly failing? Guess not. So I will investigate this one just to get to the bottom of if someone's looking at it or not. Oh, cool. Thanks, Dan. Pods sometimes don't get an IP if kubelet restarts while container creating. This is one that I was looking at.
What was your latest? What were your latest changes on that one? Because I see you pushed something after I LGTM'd it.
Yeah, I just rebased, and I need to look at it because it looks like the tests have started failing when they weren't before, or at least quite a while ago. So, I mean, I think that technically we can't get this into the release because it's not a regression, I don't think, and it's not a bug in a new feature.
Right. Were you just going to kick off the tests again?
I think there's an actual issue that I need to look into.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was hoping to do that today.
It looks like the setup is CNI and flannel specific.
It wasn't flannel specific, so the guy who raised it was using flannel, but it may be CNI specific, yeah. But I was at least able to repair this with other CNI plugins as well. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in the longer term, I'm working on some stuff that will ideally fix this by making the network plugins able to report what the current state is, and ideally kubelet or the runtimes would use that to figure out whether the pod had network set up, and then if it didn't, have kubelet restart it. I mean, right now we don't have a really good way of figuring out whether the network of a pod is actually working or not, especially after restart.
So that's the status thing that's gone into CNI a while ago, right?
No, that didn't go in. What I'm working on is a GET call, and that will actually return the existing IP configuration and interfaces of the container that the plugin is set up. Or if it's not correctly set up and something is broken, then the plugin will return an error, and then we need to make Kubelet and the runtimes actually respect that error and do something useful when an error is returned from the status or GET call. This is a per pod thing. I think what you might be thinking about, Mike, is a general status for health of the overall network plugin if it's a long-running plugin.
It's been a while since I looked. Okay. I've been just too confused. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about status on adding status to the add and delete operations, right? As a peer.
Yeah, we talked about that. I think we're still kind of discussing a general status thing upstream, but you could also kind of hijack the per container, per pod status to return a generic plugin error if you wanted, although that wouldn't tell Kubelet that the node was unhealthy. If that makes any sense.
No, I'm lost.
Okay.
I'll have to refresh my memory.
There's two parts here, but I guess we don't have to dwell on it right now. But I just wanted to say that I'm trying to work on a longer term fix for this.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be good. I was going to say, if we think this is worth getting to the release, I'm happy to finish off the PR that I've got open as a temporary fix until Dan's stuff is in.
I think the current mechanism is just NS enter into the network namespace and grab the IP from the ETH0.
Yep, that is correct. That's all that happens for pod status.
Yeah, but then it should work, right?
It depends. I mean, that should work, but there are other things that might be unhealthy as opposed to just the IP address. And it's really plugin specific in the end anyway.
Yeah, so this is this issue is specifically about CNI not getting called in certain scenarios. So
yeah, the problem with that is that the runtimes, especially on restart, they don't actually cache any kind of, or checkpoint any kind of value about whether network was set up or not. So if for some reason things quit between when you create the container and when you set up the network, then you could run into a situation where the container is started and the network is not ready, and on restart, Kubelet assumes that that means the network is ready because there's no saving of any kind of network status.
Yep. So I will leave this one open and get the tests passing for now, right? I think, Dan, I think we're in agreement that there's a more robust way to do this longer term.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you've got there is the right thing to do short term.
Yep. Okay, cool. Next thing on the list, endpoints for daemon set and host network not ready and inconsistent with pod IPs. Who knows about this guy?
I know a little bit about it. So I debug it a little bit. I don't know how his cluster was able to get into this state. What's happening is that there was a validation error at the API server side that prevents the endpoint objects being updated. And the validation error is about the update operation cannot change the node of an endpoint. So my suspicion is that the node IP. So there might be a bug in the in endpoint controller where it messed up with the pod IP and the corresponding node. But we have never seen any other issues with it before. And another possibility is that the node IP or the node name changed, and the same CIDR get reallocated and whatnot. So yeah, so then I stopped looking.
Yeah, so
because the guy mentioned that his cluster was non-gracefully shut down because of some other misoperation. So basically, all the nodes get shut down, and then it come back with yeah, this is one of the problems. So I'm not sure what happened, but if I want everyone to keep on mind that if we've seen cases like this where the endpoints object messed up with the pod IP and the node of the pod, then there must be a bug in the endpoints controller.
Could you summarize that on the issue?
Sure. I will do it.
Looking at it, I can't quite figure out what the current state is, but I think you described it pretty well.
Yeah, I chat with the guy offline. Yeah, I would do a summary. I'll
Okay.
write. All right.
Thanks.
So my read on that is that there's probably a bug here, but that we don't think it's super widespread, and there's nobody that we know of actively working on it, so we should probably kick this from 1.8.
I would agree with that.
Cool. Could you change that milestone, Dan?
So ordered.
Thanks. Next on the list. Kubeproxy sends traffic to the wrong pod. Sounds bad. Is nobody's assigned to this one. Anybody up to speed on the latest for this guy? It sounds bad if it is what it says it is.
I wonder, is this like a stale endpoints type of thing?
It could be. I don't know that whoever raised it has included the endpoints.
There is an endpoint dump near the bottom.
Oh, yeah. All right, cool. So it has both of those addresses in it. It seems like it could be a stale endpoint thing then, if the guy's claiming that the second one shouldn't be there. Right, because he's saying traffic should not be sent to this endpoint. But it looks like the IP tables rules match up with what the endpoints say.
looks like he said he's tried this for the load balancer and a host port, and he has similar issues.
Okay, so don't need to necessarily solve it here.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's endpoint. I think you said it, right? It was endpoints are wrong or something like that.
It looks like the endpoints are wrong, yeah.
RMQ. But yet,
yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. It might be a kube proxy bug because, yeah, who knows? Anyway.
Yeah, it looked like the kube proxy was programming IP tables that matched the endpoints.
Yep. If you look at the pod dump, clearly the ES pod, which has the 9200 port, is not running on 248.2, but kube proxy has added rules for port 9200 on the .2, and that does seem wrong.
Yeah, except that the .2 shows up in the endpoints, right? So.
Right, but with a different. It does show up in the endpoints Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I'll assign myself. I'm curious. I don't know if I'll be able to follow through, but at least I'll probably try to diagnose.
Cool. Thanks, Dan. It sounds like it's probably not going to happen in 1.8, given we haven't actually diagnosed it yet. But it does sound like a good one to understand.
Should I retarget it or just leave it for now?
That's a good question.
I think this is actually, he's saying that it shouldn't ever go to the thing, but if you look closely at his load balancer configuration or the RMQ app, he is specifying that it has a label of NL Services Gateway. So it makes sense that it would hit that one because he specified it in the selector. Unless I'm just reading this wrong.
Services Gateway. Template. Yeah, you know what?
They have
You're right.
I missed. What was that?
Yeah, the service, both deployment has the same label, service NL services gateway.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got that problem solved.
All right, you get to update it, Chris.
Okay.
Cool. If that's it, then that's an easy win, and we can leave it in 1.8. All right. Next. Invalid value when creating a service from exported config. So this one looks like kubectl is including some information it shouldn't when doing the -- export command. Does anybody know if this is actually even a SIG network bug? Is that something that's done in kubectl versus?
Yeah, I think it's they mentioned network just because it happens to be the cluster IP. I looked into what the export command actually does, go to it now, and looks like it's almost, or if you wanted to transport things that you were doing in one cluster over to another, and it's right that cluster IP should not be filled with anything, since it's going to be different on the new server or the new cluster, but it was explicitly set to unknown, and I'm not sure why it was set to unknown versus what it originally was, blank value. So when you go to recreate it, it says unknown is an invalid cluster ID, and there's a linked PR to force it back, but it's currently failing the etcd tests, and I'm not sure if that's because maybe there's an explicit end-to-end test that's targeting this thing. I don't know too much about strategy, but I think it relates to etcd in some way.
Yeah. So it looks like there's a PR in flight for this one. So yeah, maybe we just need to get that PR into the milestone as well so that we can close off that issue. Okay. And just two more on the list. Oops. Chris, this one is assigned to you.
Yeah, I just put in there. I was reading through. I think Minhan mentioned that this could be because the load balancer rules are read prior to the external IP rules, and I linked in there. I haven't fully traced it through the code, but it does seem at least the copy that goes into the IP table save is doing that. If you look at the bottom, I linked to the code.
Right. So, I mean, is this something we want to try and address in 1.8? It feels like you've got a bunch of stuff on your plate in 1.8 already.
Yeah, I can't remember why I excitedly assigned this to myself or not. I think it was just missing an issue, and sometimes I assign myself to things just to track if they're really bugs to close them.
Yeah.
But I would be happy if someone else could take a look at this.
Yeah, I will assign to myself, and I'll take a look and see what's going on. That work? Didn't work. I'll just keep it open. Yeah, so I'll dig into that and see if it's a bug. And the last one, kubelet flag cluster domain doesn't work if resolve conf is configured. This guy has been punted from at least one milestone. Yeah. I think this one's probably a punt unless someone's close to having a fix.
When was it added to the 1.8 milestone? Was it the prior release or recently?
It was back in June. So the prior release.
Oh, okay. I'm running this issue as well, and I see that Thaka never got answered.
The SomeWord reporter there says they'll try to work on a pull request for this, which was yesterday, so maybe they're still working on it.
Okay, so shall we, does that mean we leave it open and wait for that PR?
Yeah, I would say we do.
Okay.
And then if in a couple of days or so, obviously by our next meeting it's not fixed, then maybe we'll punt it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been around since, like, forever, so.
Yeah.
Not a regression.
Sounds good to me. Okay, so that's everything. Cool. So other than that list, are people aware of things that they think are release blocking bugs that they expected to see there but didn't? I will take that as a no. Right, so the next thing was just features. I thought it would be good, it should be really quick, I think, just to spin through, make sure that each of the 3 major features that we were working on for 1.8 is in the right place. I think it is. So for egress, CIDRs, and IPVS proxy, the code is merged. We've got release notes. Things that I think are still works in progress are docs and tests. Is there anybody here working on IPVS?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. So what is that essentially done for 1.8?
Yeah. I add one comment message in the release node draft, but I'm not sure what should I do to add the release node.
So I think there's already a release note in the draft, which should make it into the final notes. And I think given that's alpha, there's not a lot we need to do in terms of documentation or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would. I agree, and please ping me when you need. I do it in the GitHub.
Yep. Cool. So next, Chris, you had added SIG Network test grid. Sounds like there are some failing tests.
Yeah, in the community meeting, they mentioned some blocking tests. I don't know if we really need to go through these because they seem to be, a lot of them are related to kind of other things that are currently happening. I don't explicitly see any of the tests that are really owned by us. It's like a part of a suite is failing and it shows up in our dashboard. I don't really have much to go over. I basically went through each of those and put in my thoughts on them there. So if people want to take a look at them and see if they agree with me or not.
Yeah, I can have a look through those tests and see what I see. Or these were tests that were specifically called out as release blocking in.
No, I just looked at our test grid link at the top there to see if anything is listed as like failing 100% or not.
Right. Is anybody else looking at these tests already? Nope. Okay. Well, I'll try to have a look over those. Next was, and I added this. Again, should be quick. There is a KubeCon coming up, and they've set aside some time for SIGs, both a dedicated SIG speaking track where SIGs can, give a presentation and an update on what they've been up to, and a separate deep dive working session, kind of similar to what's been at previous KubeCons. So that'll be I just get a poll for who's going to be there, who'd be interested in going to these things, and if there's enough, then I will register us for both of those, or one or both of those.
Who's probably going to go?
I submitted some talks, so if either of those get accepted, I'll be there.
I'm going to be in Austin.
Cool. And I expect to be there.
I'll be there.
It's probably enough to set up a session.
Yeah, I think that's definitely enough to set up the working session. What do we think? Do we think we're interested in having a slot in the speaking track?
Can you run over quick what that means?
Yeah. So there's an email that went out. So Sarah says these sessions within the track are an opportunity for SIGs to hold a talk and provide updates to the community, which is about as much as I know for that. I'm guessing it's a kind of more, I guess I don't even know how long the slots are, but it's probably similar to the updates that are given at community meetings, with potentially a bit more depth.
Okay. Well, I mean, it probably doesn't hurt to just set that up, and then if we don't have anything, it's not a problem.
Oh, come on. I don't think there's any question. We've been doing some stuff.
Yeah.
It should be talked about.
All right. I will sign us up for those.
There were several of us that have submitted IPv6 talks. I think there's like maybe 4 or more. So.
Yes. Yes. All right, cool. I'll submit that today. Tomorrow's the deadline, so we should have our spots. And then the last thing on the agenda was, when is our next meeting?
Yep. So I added that one. Does the same time as last time work for people? I mean, I think we should just set up another meeting for that time if that works for everybody, and then go from there. Obviously, we've got a couple of things to talk about, mostly services, and just need to keep pushing that forward. I will coordinate with Tim just to make sure he's okay with that slot again.
Yeah, I was going to say that slot works for me. I think
Okay.
The biggest scheduling thing is probably going to be Tim, getting Tim's time.
Yeah. So I'll do that. I mean, earlier in the week, the better, obviously, if we can, but we'll see. Yeah, Monday's a little bit of a short warning, but if Tim's not available for that slot on Monday, then maybe Thursday will work. So anyway, I'll take the point on that.
Cool.
And schedule that and then send out the mail on that one.
All right, sounds good to me. Thanks, Dan. So that's it for the agenda. Are there any other topics that we think we can discuss in the last 10 minutes, or do we want to just get 10 minutes back for everybody?
I have a question for Mike regarding his service spec use case documentation for multi-network.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so you mentioned some of the use cases which required multi-service, multi-network for services. So these are the use cases overall SIG community come up, or it's only the initial findings you provided over there in the documentation?
Well, I linked to a document that the community's been working on for months.
Okay.
Yeah, we've spent actually quite a long time discussing and accumulating use cases. And so in Joji's document, there's an attempt to start with a digestion of the use cases.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to.
Okay. Because myself and Peter are also working on the same one. So what I was thinking, like, if you want some information, we can provide the link in your documentation. Actually, and that's what I'm thinking. If you are okay with that, I can provide the information in your documentation as well. Some of the specific use cases, actually.
So I'm not quite sure. Are you saying you have a new use case to contribute, or you have answers?
Yeah. I have a use case and also the service spec details. Actually, if you are willing, that I can put it in your documentation as well.
Well, my document. Oh, I see. So if you have a new use case, put it in that list at the head of Joji's document, and then for the service details, yeah, go ahead and put that in my document about the service aspect.
Okay. Thank you. I will do it. Yeah.
Perhaps a link might be best rather than inlining it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Dan Williams. If you can look in the chat window, I put a link to a GitHub issue 49480. This is important for IPv6. We need the 060 CNI binaries added. And so I was just curious, is there anyone, I guess there's just some hesitation. We don't necessarily need it for 1.8. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, but definitely for 1.9 if we want to support IPv6. Is there anyone in the CNI community that's taking ownership? It looks like there's a Timothy SC that wants to see that.
He's not part of CNI anything. But I mean, it's a question more of where those binaries go in, like the it's on Google Drive somewhere. I'm not sure where they are, but what I mean is, he says it's too late, and it probably is, but it can definitely happen for 1.9.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
Okay. Yeah, and so 1.9, yeah, if it could happen for 1.9, it'd be great. I just wasn't sure if there was anyone that's like kind of taking ownership to make sure that gets done.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things we need to do. First is the binaries, but we also want to update the internal Cube vendor stuff to 0.6 as well. Okay. So hopefully that should happen.
And I thought this pull request actually. There's a pull request reference in this issue that I thought actually does that. Yeah, if you go
bump CNI to 0.6.
Yeah.
So that
vendor CNI.
Yep. So that one's for the revender, and that should be okay to do once everything opens up. But that won't help with the binaries. Are you talking about the binaries specifically, or are you talking about the revender?
Basically making sure we have both of those done.
Okay. Yeah, so that PR should be okay, or should handle the revendering, but the binaries will be a different problem.
Okay.
And actually, I'm still kind of fuzzy on how those binaries get built. Not built, sorry, but how those binaries make it into where they need to go for things like kubeadm and everything else. Anyway, we'll figure it out.
Okay. I think that's the end of today's meeting then. So potentially a multi-network meeting next week and another regularly scheduled meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.